fresh, has got the right balance of electrolyte, small amount of carbohydrate that help absorption with high levels of sweat. These tablets really work, so that's why it's such a good product.
First thing I do when I wake up, get the water in me. I start adding important products into my body that keep me hydrated, that it's not just flowing through me and I'm just sweating it out. It's that my body's actually holding onto the water. This is the real deal, so I'm working alongside them for sure.
Evening, and a warm welcome to our third live Breathe Sport debate show. If you saw the Ashes debate a month or so ago, you'll have got the hang of how it works. Certainly the series is going more than to plan thus far. Hopefully the same from the football season that is almost upon us. Tonight, for the first time in one of these debate shows, we have an audience. A select few who've been plucked almost at random. A little round of applause from some of our illustrious guests. They will get involved as the programme unfolds, and we look forward to their contributions. And of course, lots to discuss with the four gentlemen on day release to my left. Ian Wright, Didi Hamann, Peter Reid and Robbie Savage. Welcome.
Good evening. Cheers, Matt.
And all of you four. Lots and lots then to talk about. Lots to get through in the next hour or so. So let's get started. And we'll start, funnily enough, with a question that's appeared on the app, on the Breathe Sport app, from Jamie Thomas. It concerns, in some ways, the man of the summer, I suppose, the villain of the piece for long periods, a certain Raheem Sterling and Manchester City and that move. Jamie Thomas has asked, what are your thoughts, fellas, on Sterling, and will he be a success away from Liverpool? Ian?
I think his potential. Me and Rob was arguing about it. Robbie was saying, where would he go? Could he get into any of the other top four? And I believe that he could have got into the other top 3, top 4 clubs because of the potential that he's got. And when you listen to people saying that Liverpool would have been the best place for him, I do agree with that to a certain extent, but I think that there's so much more of his game he needs to work on. His left foot, his right foot, the way he strikes the ball, his pass, his movement. And I think that another 18 months at Liverpool, if he just, Ronaldo waited his time, Thierry Henry waited his time. Another year, 18 months, really working on his game. I think that when he goes then, I think that you can start talking about a proper success.
I don't know the troubles about all the fusses about. Liverpool bought him from QPR.
They did.
For a few quid. Developed him. He was getting developed with QPR. For the lads' reason and the agents' reasons, he wants to go to Manchester City. This is a lad who's played in the World Cup for England. And I thought they'd all right. And I think he'll get a Man City side. I don't think he's the finished article. But which player is? It's very difficult to say you're a finished article because you'll all have...
When Rooney went at that age, you had to say that he was a lot further on than I think Raheem Sterling is.
Nowadays, with the quota of English players, there's a premium on them, and that's why they pay the premium. And I agree with you. Sometimes I think his final ball ain't great, but my whole argument is football's changed now. It's business. And Liverpool have got the money. Manchester City wanted to pay the money, get on with it.
I think it's a terrific signing for Manchester City because I think that's one of the areas where City did lack. Navas and Nasri flatter to deceive at the best of times. I think they're badly overrated. They haven't shown up for Man City.
Seasons, yeah.
Nasri plays when he wants to. Navas, I don't think he's a player for Manchester City to really step up and play a better role in the Champions League. And they've got a player there who's done exceptionally well for a, average team for the last 3 years. Even though they had a good season 2 years ago, he was one of the star players, Luis Suarez. And I think he's got untold potential, and I think he's a great signing for them. He's got pace to burn, which I think at times they did lack. He can set
only
goals
7 assists last year, though, not enough.
Yeah, well, he played
8 goals, not enough, 49 million
but he played in a team that scores 52 or 53 goals, so he goes into a team that potentially scores 90 or 100 goals next season.
Will they have the patience with him? He's come there for 49 million. Yeah. That he's got to hit the ground running. It's not like... Yeah, but if he doesn't...
Yeah, but he can't do anything for the price tag. I don't agree with everything that went on the way he did leave the club. He made his mind up, he wants to go. I think he's a big loss for Liverpool. And I think he's a great signing for Manchester City because that's one of the areas, because going forward they relied on Silva and Aguero only. And apart from that, they didn't have much else. And I think they've got another player there who can take some of that responsibility. And he wanted to go, he's made his mind up, as I said. I think he'll be a success.
You really think he wanted to go?
Just about.
I think he'll do it. I think he'll do it.
Pushed into
I
it.
think the kid will do it as well.
Sterling, obviously, and Delph, and a young striker I think has already gone out on loan, Robbie, thus far. How much more business do you think City can and should do?
A lot. I think they need 2 centre-halves,
Correct.
no question. I think they need another centre-forward, because if Aguero gets injured, big trouble.
Bonnie, not for you?
You don't win the Premier League with Bonnie up front, which is my opinion. £20 million. Done well for Swansea, but if you're going to do well in the Champions League and win the Premier League, you can't win it with Bonnie up front. I think you need a centre-half. Company needs to reproduce the form he did, not last season, seasons before. Mangala's not done it. And I think it's a massive 3 months for Pellegrini. I think Pellegrini, Van Gaal and Rodgers, first 3 months, massive pressure.
See, football's... you talk about strikers, and rightly so, get your goals and you win games. But you know what wins your games more than anything? A keeper and a good, solid back four, and being defensively solid. And whatever you say about Jose, he works on that first, that premise. And next, and like you say, if Costa gets injured, you go, are they going to win? But he finds ways to win games because he has it tight. And like you say, Man City, for me, aren't clever at the back. They are not clever at the back, and it worries me for Manchester City. Then you've got good forward players, but I do think there's a weakness back there.
There's also the sense that the manager's waiting for someone to come and take his job off him, possibly in 12 months or so. That's the talk. That's the talk that Guardiola...
It certainly doesn't help. There's talk. Pep said he's not going to sign a new contract the way it looks in Munich. Where's he going to go? There's only so many clubs. England will probably be his next destination. You will think that Man United and Chelsea and Arsenal got managers for the next 2 or 3 years. So you look at Liverpool and Manchester City potentially. That situation doesn't help when you know as a player the manager might be gone in 6 months, in 12 months' time. Yeah. And I just think they extended so many contracts in the recent months for players who haven't really performed for the last 2 years. And they gave them 4, 5, 6 year contracts. So I think that team is too old. They had a game last year where they got beat by Palace. They had 2 players under the age of 30, and one was Kompany, who's I think 30 in the meantime now. I think they're too old, and I think City could get major problems. I think a lot will depend on Sterling. If he doesn't hit the ground running, I think they're in all sorts of trouble.
It's ironic, and you know better than me, Diddy. I'm hearing from Germany that Pep's under extreme pressure.
Is, yeah.
You know, that's the way the game. That is the way football is. I'm on about transfers, but even coaches and top class coaches, if you're not coming up with it, and there's rumours out of Munich that like Pep's job's not safe. That's the way the game is.
You'd be a manager, eh, Pete?
Terrible.
There's talk of De Bruyne as well for massive money, Robbie. Yeah, it feels a bit like they're icing the cake at the top of the pitch and doing nothing about
at the back, but
the sponge.
60 million, for De Bruyne. It's ridiculous. I watched him play for Belgium against Wales. He didn't get a kick. He's talking £60 million. It's ridiculous.
I agree with Robbie. He's a very good player. I think he's in a place now. I think he needs a surrounding where he's got, I don't want to say no pressure, but where he's got his peace and quiet. Because
big fish in a smaller pond.
The press in Wolfsburg, they don't really give a toss about anything. It's about Bayern Munich, it's about Dortmund. He can do his own thing. Yeah. It's a small town in the north of Munich, and he just found a place. Even Bentner started scoring now, so it must be.
I know.
So it's. But
there's a certain
50 or 60 minutes. He's been at Chelsea. He didn't do it. I know he's a year or 2 years older.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's a player City need. I think they got to sort the central midfield out. They've got a couple of creative players. I don't think De Bruyne is a player they need because I think it's pretty similar to David Silva. I think it will take some of the balls he usually gets, will take some of them. I don't think De Bruyne is a player.
I don't think Chelsea lets him go now. Mourinho's not going to let him go if he thinks he's going to do something. I think it's the same with Mourinho and Lukaku. And who's he let go? I think he let Robin go. Is he about the only one I look at?
Well, Matic, but then he recognised his mistake,
he brought him back. But like, I do. You understand what I'm saying?
I take your point on that. I think it's very, very. You got to be careful how you judge players. Because I remember a certain Gareth Bale nearly going to Nottingham Forest from Tottenham.
And to
honestly,
Birmingham as well.
It was on, wasn't it? By the way, it was on.
Harry would say that was rubbish.
Well, I'm telling you, it's not.
No, Harry.
And everyone, it's not because that was fact. And something happened and he got called back. And as they say, the rest is history. So you got to be careful with them young players.
It's a good point.
City need players who run back towards their own goal.
Yeah.
I remember
11
Didier,
of them.
I remember Didier Match of the day saying that Toure, was it weakness, he said? Liability.
I
And
can
tell
say
you
it
what,
now,
and
got a lot of stick in the
and you know,
right.
a lot of people hammered Diddy for that, but you know, you got to say, running back towards his own goal, if you play Nasri, Silva, Toure, nobody runs back.
No.
That's why they get hammered in the big games.
Speaking of Bale, let's move on to Manchester United. Philip Richardson asks, do you think that Manchester United can win the Premier League without further additions?
No.
Yeah.
I'd say that just because of the back pairing we're talking about, Smalling and Blint. Maybe they might play Rojo there.
Or Carrick.
Or Michael Carrick, who's a midfielder. I don't think they can do it built on that. I don't know if their goalkeeper's going to stay. I think that's a massive play for him. If he goes, they have to get top draw to come in to play in front of a central pairing that I'm not convinced at all about at all.
Did he?
I think they need a centre forward. I don't think what they've got in the moment, they've got enough. I think at the back they'll be all right because I think Smalling and Jones, they're all potentially very good players.
How many years they've been there? We're still
Yeah,
talking
well,
about his potential.
they probably could do with somebody a bit more experienced because obviously after losing Rio and Vidic, I think they needed a Hummels or somebody there who can lead them because I think they would improve a lot quicker. I think Johnny Evans was a big loss when he got them 6-7 games spent last year. So they've got players there. They've got protection this year in Schweinsteiger and Schneiderlin. I think they're a lot better positioned in centre midfield. But you need a centre forward because Rooney will score your goals, yes, but you need somebody else there. And I'm not quite sure whether they have enough. If they sign a centre forward, I think they've got every chance. And the other thing is the keeper. If the keeper were to go, I agree with Righty. They talk about the Sillissen from Holland, Ajax, I think he plays for. He's a good keeper. Is he going to win your league? Robbie said before, without a keeper, you ain't going to win trophies. I'm not sure. Sillissen, it's a different game here, whether that's good enough. And the Argentinian keeper, I'm yet to see a good Argentinian keeper in the last 80 years, so I don't think he's the answer.
I think they got a chance. If you ask me who's going to win it, I'd go for either Chelsea or the Arsenal. I think they've done great business with Cech. Arsenal, I think he's fantastic. I think people haven't... Coquelin's come in that holding midfield player role. I think he's been a revelation. And I do honestly, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Walcott, pace up the front. I think they've got a chance. Manchester United still got top quality players. Depay might come in and do. I do like Schneiderlin. I think he's a good player. Schweinsteiger, if he stays fit, is top draw. So they can win it. I mean, it's that competitive. Very, very competitive. Robbie mentioned before if Costa got injured for Chelsea.
I think if you're looking at the top of the pitch, I think Arsenal have got the best options. I think if Rooney gets injured, Man United will be in trouble. If Costa gets injured, Chelsea will be in trouble. And if Aguero gets injured, City will be in trouble. So I think you can't call anybody favourites yet. But if I was a manager, I'd go and get Benzema or Cavani, just go out for him and put him in their team. If Arsenal got Benzema, I'd make them favourites. But as we speak, if Rooney plays a centre forward position, he'll score 30 goals, I think, for that team. If he gets Pedro in, he's got the pace, Depay one side, and you've got so many options. Fellaini, Mata, then midfield, Carrick, Herrera, Schneiderlin, Schweinsteiger, and then potentially the best left-back this year could be in the Premier League, Shaw. If De Gea stays, possibly the best goalkeeper once again. Darmian's good. I agree with Righty. One more centre-half. It's there for somebody to go and grab it and win and be favourites to win the league. I think United, as we speak, are favourites.
Man United?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
I can't have that, Rob. No, I can't have that in front of Chelsea, even though
I'm going for it.
Because I'm going for
as
Arsenal.
As we speak, can Chelsea, if Costa's injured, can Chelsea win the league with Remy?
No.
Can they win the league with Falcao?
No.
So you make them favourites?
I'm making them favourites because I think that Costa's going to be fit enough to start the league. The fact is, Rooney up front on his own. I think that we know that he can do it.
Right, he scored 30 goals.
Absolutely, but I think that it's a different. How many years ago was that now? It's a few years back now. No. It was a few years. I think it was the year after. Was it the year after Ronaldo left?
Not many. No.
It's enough.
It was 3 years ago.
Okay, then that's a long time in football.
Yeah.
Right, and the thing is that is he up for that battle now?
I think
to be up front on his own. I agree with you with Depay on one side. He's got to do it in the league.
Pedro looks like he's coming in.
You know what I mean? He's going to do it as well.
And I think they'll make another big signing.
And if Schweinsteiger stays fit, there's a lot of ifs and buts around that team as well. But like Costa is there, and if he's fit, then I watched Chelsea the other day. They looked tired. They looked like they stopped at that last third because they didn't have that potency.
I would say it's Arsenal's best chance for years to win the league.
I think Chelsea were under coup coming into the Community Shield, and even though all the histrionics between the managers, I don't think that would worry Jose in the least. I think he'll think about the first game of the season being the most important.
You can't tell me he's not at the moment. He's not shitting himself thinking is Costa going to be fit enough to start? Because
I think he is worried about that all last season. I think the Falcao one, you're not sure. I'm not sure whether they enable. If he's anything like half right, he's up there with the best.
Yeah, if he's fully fit, getting any top 4 team, and easily. But he's not.
So obviously, Mr. Moreno, who's not a bad manager, I've got to say, or a bad coach, obviously he thinks he is. So, it's one of them. Wait and see. I mean, Jose hasn't got him in there for the good of his health or Falcao's health. He thinks he can do a job for him.
He's given him an unbelievable opportunity to leave Man United and only score 4 goals.
Correct.
He must have been thinking towards the end, what am I going to do? You get Chelsea. I can't believe
but
that.
I watched the Community Shield and Wrighty was the pundit on it, and there was a ball and it was over the centre half, and Falcao was in a great position on his shoulder. Falcao ball would have took it on his chest, got away from the defender, and it was Koscielny or Mertesacker caught him. And for me, not for me.
Well, that's another thing, and being a player, and we all know, the biggest thing about you can have training, all the training you want. It's that match game.
Yeah.
It's them matches that get you that sharpness, that strength to hold people off. And like you say, Jose's trying to get that. There's so many conundrums, out there.
It's going to be close, isn't it?
It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
That's why we watch.
Even here, we're having the right.
One thing's for sure, Liverpool will win it.
Funnily enough, that's where we go next. We'll come back to Arsenal and Chelsea. He's done this before, Samatar Bari has popped a question in. Diddy, I'll start with you, funnily enough, here. Where do you think Liverpool will finish with the signings they've got? And the bigger question, asks Samatar, do you see Brendan Rodgers having a future at the club if it doesn't go well?
Well, a lot will depend how they start the season and how they finish it or where they finish. I think he's got to finish in the top 4. And if he finishes in the top 4, I think he may well stay. But I think they've got to win a trophy in the next 2 or 3 years, because I think he's the only manager who hasn't won anything in his first 3 years at the club, I think. So yeah, it's a big season, as every season at the big clubs. I think the recruitment was a lot better this year than it was last season. A lot of proven players where we know they have performed in the Premier League. I think Benteke could be the final piece in the jigsaw. I think they've got a wealth and talent and creativity and abundance behind Benteke and Firmino, who's coming in, who's a tough guy who played in Germany. Coutinho had a great season last year. Lallana missed pre-season last year. I expect a lot more from him. So does Markovic. So I think they've got great options behind. My worry is centre midfield.
Is it?
When you play Emre Can there, would you play him now? I'd play him there.
I'm not sure whether he can play midfield. He's got to prove he can play. They played most games at the back last year, where you've got everything ahead of you. If you can't play there as a midfielder, then you can't play
Milner, I presume, has come to play centrally.
Milner, Henderson, and Lucas or Allen.
Yeah.
So if you come up against the Chelsea midfield, against the Arsenal midfield, which one do you fancy? And this is my worry, whether they are strong enough, whether they're physically strong enough, whether they are creative enough in the middle, whether they pass the ball well enough in the middle of the park. Apart from that, I think everything is there. I like the keeper. I think he's done ever so well last year since he got back in goal. And yeah, the manager is there. He changed the coaching staff, so he got the
I was going to ask
confidence.
about that. Yeah.
He says it was his decision. We've got to take it. He said it was his decision. He needed to change his coaching staff because he needed something extra. So he's got the backing of the owners. You can't say that the owners didn't back him in the last few years because they spent a lot of money. And I think they've got a fighting chance to finish in the top 4. Will they finish in the top 4? Not too sure, because they were quite some way behind last season. And if you see the way United strengthened, Arsenal, Chelsea, City, if they catch one team out of the top 4, I think it'll be City.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll catch the other 3. But I can see City having a bit of a nightmare this year. So if they catch one, it'll be City, but it'll be tough.
To come back to the point about the coaching staff, Pete, as a manager, if could you see a scenario in which you said to your own staff, you got to go, I stay, you go? That have been with you for a while?
No, it happened to me at Man City, where the chairman asked me to relieve me number 2, Sam Ellis, at the time. And I said, no, mind your own business. And I got sacked after 4 games. So I'm not saying I'm edging me back. I just think with Liverpool, I think it's a very important. And you say, would Brendan be under under extreme pressure. Listen, all them managers at the top end, the bottom end, they're all under extreme pressure. So I think it's really difficult to single out one, or unfair, if I might say.
But I just think to that, what you just said then, as a manager then, with your coaching staff and you're a team, look at Spark with Eddie, Needs Whiskey and Bo, you know, Matt O'Neill, Steve Walford, John Robinson. Do you think as a manager, if your coaching staff go, you should go as well?
Well, no, if it's his choice. He's made a choice. I mean, we're all different. I mean, you've just mentioned some lads there who have been loyal to the coaching staff. I'm not saying that right or wrong, but I'm not having a go at Brendan Rodgers because he's in a place where he thinks I'm going to change it, you know. And that's football. I mean,
to be fair, Sir Alex has moved a few number twos on, isn't he?
I'm just asking from his because he's a manager.
Just one thing on that note, you love dropping a name I dropped one. I had lunch with Rafa not long ago, and he said to me, he needed younger coaches next to him because he's not getting on, but he's getting older. He said the older I get, because when he was younger, he could have a more experienced and older assistant manager or a coach. He said the older he gets, he said the younger my staff have to be. So there's a.
I think Gary Mack's a good appointment. Me and Righty worked on BT Sport. Great guy, great coach. You know, Sean O'Driscoll.
It seemed to come out of the blue a bit with the Gary McAllister. Like it was like a decision that's like bang.
Really,
I'm not. We was with him, and there was nothing, no hint of anything. And I know Gary for a long time, and I know he would have said something like, "Well, there's something happening. And I can't say anything." Nothing.
No, it was with him.
That's why I find it very strange how it's happened.
No, I think they spoke to one or two other people. I think Brendan wanted somebody there who's played for the club before. As I understand, they spoke to one or two other people, but it went pretty quickly. And I agree. I think Gary Mack is a great opponent, great football man. He knows what it takes to win leagues and cups. So I think he'll do well. That's
why Brendan must already said, "Listen, I'm doing a great job. You've got to go, guys. It's you've not worked out for us. See you later."
See, that's how Righty would do it, and it would go really well.
I think Liverpool have got a role to do to get in the top four.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm with Diddy as well. I think City or Liverpool for that fourth place.
You'd need Benteke would need to hit the ground running. Same as Firmino. Same with Lallana would have to be consistent. Coutinho would have to be continuously consistent, because if he does, then you've got somebody who could be really top draw.
But don't forget, they played without a centre forward last year. Sturridge out all season. Balotelli, you know, don't even know what he did last year. Lambert scored 1-2 goals, so they played without a centre forward for the whole of the season. And Benteke, what a fantastic signing, because if they hadn't got him, I think they would have been in bother, because they needed somebody. What a signing he is. I think he'll do terrifically well, because it's not that easy when you play the way they play one up top. It's not that easy to play the role. You've got to do everything, and I think the guy can.
I worry, because I think Benteke's strength, a bit like Lukaku's strength, is getting in there early, and the way certainly Everton, I've got to get him a mention somehow, because I know he wouldn't over there, because the Reds over there. So anyhow, Everton and Benteke, sometimes you need to get it there early or quick. Gerrard had that out his feet. Go on, I'm looking for him. Now, I'm not so sure Henderson, Allen, all them midfield players have got that in the locker. I'm not saying they knock it forward all the time. I'm just saying vary it.
But who had that for Villa, though? But who had that for Villa? Because he done well for Villa. Nobody done that for Villa, did they?
Well, Tim came in and done that. Tim came in and all of a sudden...
Yeah,
but who knocked the ball? Who was the one for Villa?
Delph knocked it in there earlier. Cleverly knocked it in there earlier for Villa. And I think it was conscious. I'm not knocking Lambert, because this is the way they play, but I think sometimes... I went to Goodison a couple of times, and we're in Everton. We're in the final third. Tim Howard ends up with the ball somehow, because we've kept possession. And sometimes, and I can understand keeping possession, especially when you're up, but sometimes I think you got to put pressure on people, you know, because sometimes it doesn't have to be a perfect goal. You can score a goal off a defender's mistake.
Absolutely.
But if you don't stick it in there, how many did you get? Put pressure on people.
So many.
Now,
I've
done it well for you there.
You've played another one and he's stuck it away.
But what I'm saying, and I understand how Brendan wants to play, keeping it, and Roberto Martin is keeping the thing, but sometimes it's got to go in there. Sometimes it's got to go in there. Exactly.
Right, enough about Everton.
All right, sorry.
We'll go on to the relegation battle soon.
Right, quiet you four, just momentarily, because it's high time we got the audience involved here on Breathe Sport, of course, in association, this part of the show with ORS. get some questions from our carefully selected audience. As luck would have it, we'll start with someone who's, I think, a fairly self-confessed, passionate Arsenal supporter, the heptathlete and Olympic medalist Kelly Sutherton amongst our audience tonight. Kelly, what would you like to ask, and of whom?
This is going to Ian. Is this working? I'm going to Ian. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you, Kels.
After yesterday's Community Shield win over Chelsea, do you feel Arsenal have what it takes mentally to become realistic title tenders?
Well,
if
that's-
not, why?
Well, it's a good question, Kel, because I feel that with the acquisition of Peter Cech and the fact that he went in the dressing room and he did mention the fact, listen, I'm a winner, I'm here to win, and that's the mentality that the guys need. I think they started very poorly last season, Arsenal, and that's why it was vitally important that the pre-season they've had, and I've watched quite a lot of it. You know, they played teams and they beat them quite comfortably, and they played some really good stuff. And yesterday against Chelsea, it wasn't a great game, but you saw in flashes what they can do going forward. And what needs to happen is they need to start well, and they need to continuously play well up until Christmas. When the pressure starts, where you have to win games, what Chelsea and Man United have done in the past, and Man City done to a certain extent. They nearly messed it up a few times, Man City, but the mentality is when you have to go away. Arsenal's problem is they're going to have to go away, and they're going to have to win games where they haven't played well, like they did against City. And like even Mourinho complaining yesterday about Arsenal didn't want to play and Wenger taking players off and make it defensive. I'd love to see him do that. That is what's going to happen. Once they start realising, Arsenal, that they can play deep and, you know, with the goalkeeper like they've got and the solidity of Coquelin in front and the goalkeeper, then all of a sudden Arsenal can maybe nick a goal like Oxlade-Chamberlain scored yesterday. There weren't too many chances going till the end of the game, and then sit back and defend. So I do believe it's going to come down to the momentum and then building the confidence and the mentality to see it through, because that's why I think it might let them down. Injuries are always going to be a problem for all the teams, but what's going to let them down is the experience getting down into February and March.
Does that answer your question, Kel? Are you confident?
I'll tell you what the bottom line is, Cal. You know, being top class, and I think the business end, Sir Alex Ferguson always goes on the business end.
Yeah.
We don't know whether they've got it till it comes up, because whatever you say, when that pressure comes on, good players sometimes don't perform. The Chelsea's have done it. Some of the Man United lads have done it. Some of the Manchester City lads have done it. The Arsenal lads at this moment in time haven't done it. If you're asking me, have they got it in them to do it? Yes.
It's a different
for the
thing,
reasons,
Pete, all the
for the reasons you just said. But that pressure is unbelievable, you know.
Well, it's one of those, when you're going into the games, it's not like the Chelseas and the Liverpool, the big. It's the Swansea and Southampton. All of a sudden, those teams, you're going into this game, and Chelsea or Man United or whoever, they've won the day before. You're playing a live game, whether it's a Sunday or a Monday. You're knowing all that you have to win. You can't lose. And so even if you go a goal down, all of a sudden, that is when you start to see where the mental strength comes in.
Exactly.
Do they carry on playing the game? Do you carry on doing what you do, Arsenal, and try to keep playing, then you maybe give another one away? Or do you shut up shop and say, right, we nick a goal and then say, right, let's take the draw and go, like a Man United would do?
I thought you just said that.
Yeah. Right.
But where would they get that mentality?
No,
and
you
that
don't know
confidence?
till
Would
it happens.
they
don't know till it happens.
Okay,
Till
so
you
it
get
doesn't
to
come
get
from the
down
manager.
into it.
Yeah, till you
Okay.
get
How'd you get down into it?
I think what helps him more than the win yesterday, obviously Wenger never beat Mourinho. Psychologically, it'll do them the world of good. I wouldn't read too much into it, because the game meant a lot more to Arsenal than it did for Chelsea. But I think winning the FA Cup the last 2 years, I think they showed they've got the steel to do that. And I think the player we've mentioned him before who could make a difference is Coquelin, because I think there are a lot more. The defensive stability is a lot better. And you can't score 2 and 3 and 4 goals all the time. Sometimes you've got to win games 1-0. You've got to be able to keep a clean sheet. They've got a keeper now who's done it before. I don't think he's the same keeper as he was, but I think he's a lot better than what they had. So they've got that. And if Coquelin performs as well as he did last year, I think they've got a squeak. I fancy them to win the league. I've tipped them to win it, which is probably not a good omen. But I think they've got what it takes. And as we know, we don't know till they get into a position.
Because there was 17 points behind at one stage, and it's not easy, but it's easier to play catch up, because you know it's not that pressure. But when you're up there, like Ian says, and like the games against Swansea, we should win this. No, they're the games.
If you're out in front, and you're chasing, it's really easy to chase.
Yeah.
It's hard to
And there's
stay
not
out.
many teams. There's not many teams who can win 10, 12 games on the spin.
No.
They can.
Contenders.
behind.
I think the consensus is contenders, Kel. So you'll have to
Good.
put
I'll
up with
take
that until March,
Take that.
and we'll see.
I'll be tweeting Diddy in 8 months' time.
Okay, fair enough. Now, next question I think comes from Adam, who sat next to you. Regular Breathe Sport users will know Adam well. He's a good contributor on the platform. Adam, what's your question?
You've talked about a few of the clubs already, but relative to position in the league, which club out of the 20 do you think has done the best business this transfer window, or so far at least, anyway?
I'll go first because nobody will say there. I think Palace, out of 20 teams, Cabaye, Bamford, I think will be a great sign. I think he'll score goals wherever. He's got a great record wherever he's been. Wickham, we talked about it before. Not too sure. I think he's got the ability. He hasn't done it for some reason. And they kept the 3 players. They kept Zaha, they kept Bolasie, and they kept Punchin. I think.
And Scott Dan.
Scott Dan turned Everton down, signed a lucrative contract, as we understand.
So we understand.
So no, I think Palace is a serious contender, finishing the top half this season.
Good call, Robbie.
Stoke. I think Stoke, Mark Hughes.
The new Barcelona.
Great job. Well, they've got, you think, they've got Bojan to come back.
Yeah.
They've got Afellay.
Yeah.
They've got another Barcelona player.
Yeah.
can't remember
Urachi, the Moroccan.
Yes.
They've got Van Ginkel.
Yes.
So, you know, Mark Hughes
Lost and Zonzi, didn't they? But
lost in Zonzi, yeah. But I think Mark Hughes, to finish 9th twice for Stoke, brilliant job. I think Stoke could win the league below the top 6. I think they could finish 7th. I think Stoke could finish 7th and win a trophy this year. Very tough place to go. Mark Hughes, I would say Stoke have done great business.
Well, how are they going to play then if that's the case? I mean, it's a big change, surely, bringing
Well,
in some of the
Sparky did it at
Barcelona
Blackburn. He had a good basis, and then he bought Bellamy, Rocky Santa Cruz, Benny McCarthy,
Savage,
and he transformed it. And he transformed it to play attacking football. And I think he's, you know, Tony Pulis, as well as he did at Stoke, never finished in the top 10. You know, but Sparky's done it twice running. You know, they battered Liverpool on the last day. They've had a good
and
signings.
they start, don't they? They meet again on
That
Sunday.
was without their best player, Bojan. It was, you know, he scored that goal at Rochdale in the cup, went off injured. Their best player all season. So Afellay, you know, they've lost us on the yes, but I think Stoke could have a real good season.
I think I've got to mention because they've been needed a goalkeeper for years, and I think they've got a great goalkeeper now. Yes,
Is this Arsenal again?
No, I'm just saying. You're asking me. I'm not going to stay with them. What I'm saying is, I think that's great business, and if they do get Benzema, which I don't think they're going to do, that would be great. But I have to say, Liverpool with Benteke and Firmino, the Brazilian, and James Milner. There's a
Klein as well.
And Klein, you know what I mean, and Klein. Well, I was a bit disappointed with Klein when I watched him a couple of times for England. When he got in there as a regular, there was his distribution. He was struggling a little bit, which could be a problem for him at Liverpool because they play. But I do believe that that Liverpool have not done badly.
One player we've got to give a mention, talking about Liverpool, who I think could have a tremendous season, who is potentially as good as Sterling, maybe better, is Jordan Ibe. He had a fantastic pre-season. Yeah. I think the kid is ready to play. He's been out on loan twice. And to talk all these fancy players, I think there's half a chance he'll start on Sunday or Saturday, whenever they play. He's a real talent.
Yeah.
Arsenal, yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah?
Without a doubt. Could win them the title. For me.
Mourinho will spit his dummy if the keeper wins in the title.
I think it's the one. I think with the.
Don't think it was down to the manager, was it? To be fair,
it wasn't. He's made that clear. We saw him, didn't we?
Right. I hope that answers at least to where we are now, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ben is sat next to you with another question. Ben.
Evening, chaps. With the top 5 probably nailed on before ball's been kicked, and maybe Spurs 6, hopefully. Maybe. Righty. Where's your surprise this year, like Southampton last year? Where's your surprise?
I quite like Villa for some reason. I just think that Tim, he's just got this, and you've got to say Stoke as well with what Mark Hughes is doing. But I think Villa with Tim's, I don't know, je ne sais quoi. He's got like Smug Sherwood. I love Smug Sherwood. I just feel that they could do. It's just they're the first ones that come out of their head. I fancy them
Lost
to do
out from
something.
Benteke, of course. Brought a few in fairness. Still
They're
some
gonna
talk about selling the club.
They're going to need goals, of course. But I just feel that Tim, from the start with the pre-season and everything, he's getting his stamp on them. Maybe he's got to get hold of that Grealish because he looks like he could go the wrong way if he doesn't sort himself out. But it looks like a great player. But I think that I'm going to go for Villa as my surprise team.
Did he?
I stick with Palace. Not only did they bring some quality players in, they also kept, well, there's a few weeks to go, so we don't know. But if they keep Bolasie, Zaha and Puncheon, I think they create so many opportunities. I watched them at Anfield, second last day of the season, and just a joy to watch. Palace, you think about a team that grafts, that grinds a result out. No, there was flair, they passed the ball. Jedinak's doing a fantastic job in the middle of the park. They're good to watch. In Pardew, they couldn't get him out of the door quick enough at Newcastle. I think you know, they wouldn't mind having him back now. And to follow the managers who've been there before, being successful, to follow that, doing the job he did is fantastic. I think they could have a really good season. I think they've got a chance to finish in the top 10. When we talk about the top 5, top 6, Everton are probably the ones you've got to fancy, even though they've got their problems. You know, I think there's a host of names and clubs behind there who could finish 7th.
Who did great last year with Swansea.
Swansea again.
I mean, they did fantastic. I've got a sneak for them as well, Palace. I think Cabaye is a really good buy. With that pace, he's the guy who can, when I was on before, stick them passes through. I've just got a sneak for Palace as well.
Next question, and another face that many of you will recognise in Tom Shanklin. I think Wales' most capped centre, aren't you, Tom, still?
Just about, yeah.
Just about. Just about. Go ahead, Tom.
Obviously not a technical question, guys, but the saying is in sport, humble when you win, gracious in defeat. Yesterday at the Community Shield, we saw Wenger snub Mourinho. Is that showing a lack of respect? And respect is obviously used a lot in sport. They want the players to show more respect, but when the top of your organisation isn't showing it, what sort of example is that setting?
It looked bad yesterday, and it is quite embarrassing. But because we're talking about two of the top boys, two very intelligent men. Yes, you know, the competitiveness, and you know, when you're going down into the meat and bones of a Premier League, like at the end, you can understand where it can get a bit touchy. We're talking about the Charity Shield here.
But you know, it's like you've done it. You've done it with Steve Walsh, Leicester, Arsenal. So people do it.
But I'm talking about when we're right amongst it. That's the Charity Shield at the start of the season. All they need to do, for me, is we know they dislike each other, Robert. Just for the, like you said, for the respect of it, for everybody to see. Yes, we know they don't get on, but at least they'll have the courtesy to shake each other's hand, because that's what it's about.
And look at something. I think it's disgraceful.
It's terrible.
You know, it's awful. At the end of the day, as much as we love it, talk about a game of football. And I think sometimes these people take themselves a little bit too serious. End of the day, it's a game of football, and if the other team wins, you've got to acknowledge it, appreciate it, respect it.
Especially since failure is always going to sneak in his mind.
Shake hands, and we talk about rugby. I've been to a rugby game the first time, Ireland, England. I couldn't believe the respect shown. And I think the big problem, and I said this for the last 2 years, the way the players speak to the referees these days, the disrespect shown towards opposition, towards the referee, something has to be done. But it won't stop if we see managers disrespecting the opposition manager. And I think the FA has to do something about it, because we've got millions of kids watching every weekend, and the language that's been used towards officials, I think, goes all within that. I think some of the people involved in the game lost respect for the game, because they take themselves too important, too serious, and I think this is where something needs to be done, because it doesn't come from them. So you've got to make a rule, or you've got to do something about it.
I was the worst in the world in terms of profanities.
How would if I be banned in
I think the game's moved on. The advent of TV now and that many cameras, I think there's a responsibility. But it does drive me mad when I hear that footballers are role models. They're not. Let me tell you, they're not role models. My mum and dad were my role model, and all this rubbish about footballers being role models. They have got a responsibility on the football pitch, but like Tom said, the responsibility comes for the lads in charge. And if you ain't got that right, Mr. Wenger, Mr. Mourinho, who were great managers, but shake your heads, lads. Yeah. Let's do it right on there. And you can have that competitive. And I tell you what I love as a footballer. I love shaking hands before the game. What's that all about?
It's ridiculous.
What is it all about? Shows respect. Nah, you go in there, you have the battle, the game, and at the end, shake hands then.
It's not even a genuine shake, is it?
I know, it's like
stupid.
Well, there, but your point's right. If it's not right at the top, how do you expect your players to be disciplined on the park? You know,
should the referees have more power then to punish people?
They've got the powers. The referees in football, if you swear, you can go. You can go. The referees have got them
Yeah,
powers.
but if you do that, really, if you do that, the game will be stopped after 25 minutes because there's nobody left on the pitch. So do you think that, the referee gets another game?
Excuse me,
Yeah, but if he
excuse
does
me,
that,
no,
everyone
excuse
stops.
me. After that, as a coach, I go, you don't swear again. You don't swear again. It's like diving. If you get 3 games for diving, which I think drives me crackers, because I mean I go to watch your game, it's hard as nails, and I like to think our game is a physical contact game. I'm not sure now. So if they got 3 games in diving, I'll tell you what, as a coach, I bet you that nearly goes 100%.
So, but a dive, a dive without being touched.
Yeah.
So no contact whatsoever. That's a dive, yeah. What if there's a slight contact exaggerated? Where do you stop it?
We'll just have a committee. I'll go on it. We'll get another ex-manager on it, and we'll go. Yeah, 3 games. I'm sorry. And by the way, you know a dive, and I know. I know someone.
We had
when
the
you
debate,
say
right,
a little clip.
we had the debate with the penalty. Could it be a penalty and a dive?
And a dive, yeah.
Say-
I think it can.
I think it
you
can.
yeah.
Sometimes
I think you can
jump
book
to
him
protect yourself.
and give the penalty.
So not all the time, when you expect a challenge and you jump, not every time there's no contact, it's a dive.
So what about when a referee punishes a player for diving then?
Right.
And it's not dive, like Fabregas Southampton, that wasn't a dive. He was booked for diving.
Yeah.
Should the referee get a 3-game ban?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have it for all. No problem. If he makes a mistake, a referee gets out the next week, doesn't he? Because it's highlighted. It's highlighted, but if a footballer dives or makes a mistake, they don't.
I think a dive with no contact whatsoever, yes. But I think there's slight contact. You can't say if that player's diving.
So
100%.
Skrtel can wrestle people's off corners and get away with it.
That's not diving.
Right. Why? Because it's what?
got nothing
It's
to do with it.
dive.
Well, what is it? It's contact.
Yeah, it's not dive though.
It's not
It's
contact,
stopping
though,
him
is
from
it?
challenging legitimately for the ball.
So
right?
we'll go into everything. I want
Well,
to
let's
say.
just-
So is that contact and you go down? Is
It
that
depends
a
how
pen?
fast you're running.
Well, no.
We
Well,
see Bale.
you'll be all right.
You and I get banned on and all, don't worry about that.
Maradona's
By the
come
way,
through there.
It's terrible. It's terrible, isn't it?
It's shocking. Well, we're solving problems as we go.
By the way, I wish I'd have gone like that, because he wouldn't have fell over. Let me tell you, he wouldn't have fell over.
Next week, Peter Reid on Greece and the debt crisis. We'll get that one sorted. Let's involve one more question. We've just got time for Badia, I think, who's got the microphone. Badia.
Hi. You talked about Raheem Sterling earlier, and it's a similar sort of question. So do you think English talent is overpriced? And secondly, do you think they should stay at their clubs to develop? And as a Spurs fan, probably maybe specifically talk about Harry Kane?
Yeah, I do believe that they are overpriced. I don't understand why Raheem Sterling can go for 49 million and some of the price, like Andy Carroll, can go for what he went for. And
But look at Ozil and Sanchez, they've come in, won stuff.
You know
and
what I mean?
much less fees.
Unbelievable, but
In theory, Greg Dyke's obviously got these proposals over the next 4 years, hasn't he, that homegrown players will be much more valuable and there'll be a quota if he can make it stick.
Man, it's the biggest nonsense ever. Because if you look at Man United's homegrown players, there's 2 Da Silvas, there's a Januzaj, there's a God knows who. All they do...
I've not seen him yet, I believe he's good.
You will do. There's a few about. All they do is bring young players in even earlier, because when they bring them in at the age of 13, 14, by the time they're 18, they're homegrown players.
That's
it's the biggest nonsense. It's counterproductive for English football. What the FA did in the Premier League is just, I don't know what these guys getting paid for. What you have to do, you have to stop academies bringing in foreign players, put a quota in there. You can only have 1 or 2 foreign players.
Legally, it's difficult to do that, isn't it?
All right, then you've got to get with it. But now they've got that rule that you need 8 homegrown players at least, and not all 8 in these clubs are English players.
No.
And it won't improve the national team one bit. If anything, it makes it even worse. Are the English players overpriced? Yes, they are. But that's down to the fact that there's the most money in the Premier League. Some of these English players, when you see the wages they pick up, they should light a candle every day, because if they were Portuguese or German or Brazilian or Albanians, they will pick up a quarter of the wages they do. So they're very fortunate to be English at this moment in time. Yes, they're overpriced, but this is what it is. And I think 49 million is a lot of money for Sterling, but is the going rate at the moment.
What would Kane be worth right now? What would Harry Kane be worth right now?
Kane will be worth, he wouldn't be far off, maybe not that much, but
he'd be
if
30 million. Would he be 25, 30
Well,
million?
I've just seen today, Connor Wickham, who's
You
got
wouldn't let him
9
go for
goals in
less than 30
63 games, going for nearly £13 million.
It's a
not his fault.
marketplace,
It's not the
isn't it?
boys' fault.
No,
All
it's a
Harry Kane has to do,
marketplace.
if he starts the season, you know, and just scoring goals, I think he's one of those that, because he shoots when he gets the opportunity
Yeah,
outside the box, and he gets in the box and he finishes well with head, feet, left foot, right foot. He finishes well. So I think he's going to get his fair share of goals. And like you say, if Sterling's gone for that, then Harry Kane's got to be worth 25 million, 30 million now.
Reminds me of Sheringham. You probably know better.
Yes,
He reminds me of
Teddy,
the way
yeah.
he plays. Very clever player. Knows where the goal is. Brings other players into play. Great for his touch. His awareness is exceptional. You know, potentially he could be worth more if he has another season like last year. Potentially he could be worth more than 49
As a
million.
Spurs fan, and it gives me joy to tell you that if he does what he does last season, then he will be sought out. He must probably be gone at the end of next season. You know, so take that, put that in your pipe.
Put that in your pipe.
But like to make the point, no, seriously, I just having a thing. The fact is, I hope that he does stay for another year and cement himself in there and carry on learning, because he's one of those, I've heard, he's always behind in training, working on his game. That's what you need to do. Harry Kane doesn't need to leave Spurs for the next 2 years. Doesn't need to leave. He can stay in there, score more Premier League goals, and then in another 2 years, then he will go for 35, 40 million quid.
Put that in your pipe. David Dimbleby doesn't normally have to cope with that kind of abuse from the panel, let alone the audience. Thank you very much for your questions. If you didn't get a chance to put a question or it wasn't selected this time, hopefully there'll be future opportunities here on Breed Sport. It's at least a minute or two since we talked about Jose Mourinho, so let's get back to him. Chelsea and their credentials. A question from John Jones for the panel. What do you think of the style of play? Not necessarily the results that they get from it, but the style of play. Are you a fan of Chelsea's sometime park the bus, sometime win with flair?
I've not got a problem. You know, we were probably we played against the flair teams in Arsenal and Man United. We had to grind teams down. If you get results, I've not got a problem. Sometimes I think they could be a little bit more expansive, especially when they're ahead. But even though Mourinho wasn't there when they won that game against Bayern Munich in the Champions League final against all the odds, to come back from behind and to grind the result out. And Chelsea are the best. And I enjoy watching a game like this as much as I enjoy watching Barcelona. I've not got a problem with it. You should be careful talking about other teams parking the bus, because he's the master of it. He's he's a coach driver himself. So you should be careful what he says about other teams, because glass houses sometimes you shouldn't throw stones. And but I've not got a problem. But they've got players, in Hazard, in Willian. I think they've got players who can make a difference, who are great to watch. Yeah. And end of the day, as we said before, the reason Arsenal never won the league in the last 10 or however many years was they can't keep a clean sheet. Now here you've got a back four. Terry plays as well as he ever did. You've got a top-class goalkeeper. You've got Matic in front. So you've got 5 players who guarantee you 14, 15, 18 clean sheets. You've got a chance.
Maybe people in glass houses shouldn't buy stones, Rob. That's apparently what they're
I
do
actually live in
next.
a glass house, believe it or not. I do. Anyway.
I do believe it. I do believe it.
I do. I think that 3 of their back four was in the team of the year. The big question is, can John Terry be as good as he was last year? He was magnificent last year. Can he be the same this year? There was talk about them buying Stones as possibly replacement for Terry. But as Peter said earlier, you win the league with a good goalkeeper and a solid back four. And Chelsea have the best. The biggest worry would be Costa. To be fair, I think they're boring sometimes to watch Chelsea. I did BT and Match Day lots of times last year, and Chelsea was dreadful to watch. But did win 1-0.
Don't you think earlier on they played some really good stuff? First half of the season,
Brilliant
thought they were on fire. They really played some expansive stuff and great.
That's where Hazard. That's where he done all his work. That's where he won them.
There was a win at Swansea that stood out, wasn't there?
But the bottom line is, you know what the bottom line is? When they needed to go and do it, like we said before with Kelly, when they needed to see it through, they dug results out.
That's the strength.
They went when Liverpool. I thought Liverpool were going to win the title. Chelsea goes to Anfield, and everyone goes on about Stevie G's slip, but they did the job on them. They did the job on them, and it wasn't great to watch. In fact, it was boring. And like I said before, a mistake cost a goal, and they negotiation and Torres get the second. They win football matches at the right times.
So style comes a distant second to substance.
I'm not going to remember Chelsea parking the bus when people talk about 2014 when they won the Premier League, because you're not bothered about that. I'm hoping that the way they played there's certain times where it's just not going right, and you just have to defend in that. Some of the times I watch Chelsea and I think, why are they doing that? They're actually winning. They're actually winning. Why are they doing that? But they've done it, and it got them results. It hasn't got them many fans in the way they play, but for me, I'd still take the trophies and that stick. I would do it. I would do it.
It's difficult for managers because I think it's fair to say Arsenal's been criticised with the Arsenal for being too open in games.
Yeah.
What's he doing? He's too open. So you can't win.
No.
You know, you're too open, you get done. And I remember them going to, was it Man City?
Yeah,
and he went, hey, we're going to go tight, 5 across, one in front.
Yeah, but one of the best performances I see Chelsea, and people say when they went to City a couple of years ago,
I was at the game. Yeah,
they were fantastic.
I was at the game.
It was an absolute. It was like a masterclass in defensive play. Sometimes people don't look at it like that. They just say, "Oh, they're boring. It's boring." It's not. It's fantastic what Chelsea done up there.
Matt, it's very hard to play beautiful football and be successful. You know, you've got to be a Barcelona, maybe a Bayern Munich find it hard now in a weakish league. They can't do it in the Champions League. You've got to have an exceptional team to play beautiful football and be successful. And that's why you have to find a way of, as Reece just said, you've got to find a way of winning. Arsenal, they're great to watch, but they won't check all in the last
I think that's a great point when you said Barca, because we all got sucked in.
Yeah.
Because they had that many good players. But Jose did it with Inter Milan against him. He boxed them off. We all forget about that.
Yeah.
So sometimes, and it might be great entertainment, but it's fascinating to watch from a tactical point of view. And sometimes I prefer the open play to win all the time. But it doesn't. Fact of life.
It's interesting in a way, and this goes on to our next question, that for all of Arsenal's attractive football, it's the additions at the back that are suggesting contenders rather than also-rans. And Harry Tolworthy asks, with that in mind, fellas, have they done enough in the market? Could they do a bit more to get closer to winning the title, Rob? Have they got a centre-half or a city midfielder? Those are the other positions other than centre-forward.
As a boy said, I think Coughlin's emergence is great for them. But it's there for somebody. Benzema would be the one. If you've got that much money to spend, and I've rightly said he probably won't go there, I don't think he will, but they've got options, but top draw centre-forward.
Like
Arsenal
as well.
Arsenal could be favourites. It's there for somebody to...
Benitez has said today, I think at Real Madrid, he thinks Benzema will stay with Real. Whether you read into that what you will,
The one player I think is very important to them, who had injury problems last year, has got to stay fit, is Koscielny. He had Achilles problems last year, missed a lot of games last year. I think that over the last 2 or 3 years, you can make a case for them being the best partnership. I think the problem with them has been not getting the protection in front of the back four. They've got there with Coquelin now. Koscielny is a major player because if he's out, James.
The biggest thing for me, and Wrighty will know better than me, who doesn't he play? Everybody's fit. Wilshere was great for England towards the end of the season. Them 2 world-class goals. I think a fully fit Jack Wilshere gets in that team.
But that's 5 times a season.
Who does he leave out? Who doesn't play? Because he's going to play Coquelin and Ramsey.
And he's going to play. He's doing.
Ozil's going to play. Who doesn't play?
Injured, isn't he?
Nice
But I think that's
a nice one, but who doesn't play?
I don't know.
I still think there's going to be more business. Beginning of August, end of August.
Going to be.
And the 4 top teams, it wouldn't surprise me if all of them go out and do business.
You know what? Just going back to Kelly's question, and that competition for places is something that Arsenal have needed for years now.
Yeah.
Because Jack Wilshere needs to get in the teams, and he's got to make sure that in training he's doing it. And the guys who are in the team have got to make sure, listen, Jack's coming back, I've got to make sure I stay in there. That is what gets you the mental strength. That's what gets you to win games. And then people like Jack, they just have to wait their turn. You know, if Arsenal are doing well, they're doing well. I can't leave them out now. You know, that's what Arsenal have needed for years, and I think that this might be the time. Might be the time.
Let's round this off, this programme, with... We've talked the talk, so one word answers who wins the Premier League this season.
I'm going for Arsenal.
Arsenal.
2 Arsenals.
Arsenal.
3 Arsenals.
United.
And a United.
No way United, man.
Not one Chelsea.
We'll see.
To be honest, I just feel that, like, watching them yesterday, Matt, and I know you, without Costa, I'm sorry.
And what happens at the other end of the 3 that come up and those that perhaps are in peril
Newcastle,
of going down?
Fearful.
You worry about Newcastle, Robbie?
Yeah, they've made 3 signings. I think they spent about £50 million. I'd fear for Newcastle.
Would you?
Yeah, Steve McLaren's a good coach, but Derby should be in the Premier League. They should have beat QPR. They were down to 10 men QPR. Derby should have won that game. Last season they were in control, finished 8th. McLaren then goes to the Premier League with Newcastle. Poor season last year. don't think that, you know, it's a big club, big expectation. I think Newcastle could struggle, be the surprise.
Leicester, purely on the basis, I don't know who dug Ranieri out that name. It baffles me. It baffles me.
I thought you might say that.
The Tinker manager, you've got to think Pearson got a sack of what happened after the season when they went to Thailand with the young players, which was a very unfortunate incident. But I don't know how they came up with Ranieri, and purely on the basis of that, because I don't know what he's done in the last 10 years to, you know, justify giving him the job.
It's going to be a tough
I think Leicester will be.
Who's best equipped of the three that come up?
I just think it's more difficult for the three who comes up, and it's getting even more difficult. I mean, Leicester to stay up, the other two went down. Leicester to stay up, absolutely unbelievable.
So you're fearful for the three that come up? Watford, Norwich, and Bournemouth.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard. Yeah. It's going to be.
I
really
think at
difficult.
least two stay up.
Norwich.
I think Norwich and Bournemouth will stay up.
Really?
Yeah, I like it.
Who's going down then, did he?
Leicester. What did you say, Newcastle?
Nothing right, eh?
And Watford, you presumably think Watford, do you?
Sunderland, yeah.
Sunderland can't do that again.
Oh, God
That's
bless
just
us.
like,
You two are going to get some umpty from the northeast by the way.
No, Sunderland, not Newcastle. Sunderland, Leicester, and Watford.
Sunderland, Leicester,
But it could all
Watford.
change, Matt. We're doing this 3 weeks before the transfer window shuts.
Of course.
So it could all change.
Of course, but that's why we like to put you on a pedestal. We can knock you off in a few weeks' time when it all changes. And of course, what we haven't talked about yet is the European scene. That starts in due course. Well, Manchester United have to qualify for the Champions League, obviously. But assuming they do, who of the 4 English clubs might go deep? Could there be an English winner? Are we at that stage? Or are we a bit far off? Who wins the Champions League?
When people talk about as English winners and we didn't have enough no teams in the semi-finals and this, since 1999, even when Man United won it, the English teams, they always are the underdogs in the game and scrape through the game and thing the game. They don't go to the Champions League and play like how Barcelona play or Bayern Munich play. We get there and it's a tin hat kind of vibe. So it's not we're still nowhere near these teams really, for me. But if we're going to say we're going to be the teams that's going to be close enough, if Chelsea get it going and Costa's fit, you have to say that Chelsea might go the furthest.
I'd be surprised with the players they brought in. You've got to say that there's some quality players being brought in by the top teams. I'd be very surprised if there wasn't an English team in the semis this year. I think the gap is not as big as it was. Bayern Munich got their own problems. Obviously, the 2 Spanish teams are the benchmark. But then, I think they should be able to compete, at least one of them, with Bayern Munich, Paris, Juventus. I expect an English team in the semis this year. Best chance, I wouldn't like to say. I think they all got as good a chance. But I think that the reason Mourinho came back was to win the Champions League. And I think that the emphasis and the focus will be, they don't give the league away because of that. But I think the Champions League will be the competition he wants to do well this year.
Really?
I think the group's very important. I think Manchester City have had some terrible draws in it. I mean, some of the groups they've been has been.
Well, it won't get any easier if they keep getting knocked down.
Well, I know that, but they have been in bad groups.
Yeah, but that's
right. Catch-22.
Well, that's right. I mean, if whatever. But I mean, whatever. No, but going back to them, I'll tell you what. You forget about Aguero, Sterling. We haven't spoke about Delph, who was a very good defensive midfield player who's got legs. Just if they get a centre half, another centre half, I think they've got a really good chance because I think they'll get goals. I do think with the likes of Silva, whatever.
The manager's got to change his tactics surely in Europe.
Well, yeah. He's got to. He can't get outnumbered in the middle of the park. He can't get outnumbered in the middle of the park.
So why didn't he, as a manager, why? Because why didn't he see that then?
Well, that's what they got him over for, wasn't it? To win the Champions League.
I think he's gone in there. He's thought we're that good. We can go on and take these teams on. And I mean,
they weren't.
My way would be the 5 across the middle, Aguero up front, and if you want someone breaking from the middle of the park or just getting back and fill the hole, Torre doing that. Yeah. And by the way, that ain't a bad side. And Mangala hasn't really done it. I mean, he's come in there a lot of money. I mean, he's got to come to the party, the skipper. He's got to come to the party.
Yeah, you would think so. Rob, last word. Who's going to win the Champions League?
Barcelona.
Again?
Yeah.
Yeah, no question.
Barcelona. I was at the final, magnificent.
Yeah, they were tremendous. Fellas, and all of those watching here with us and all at home, we're out of time. Hope you've enjoyed answering some of the questions. It's as clear as mud, frankly. But Ian, Diddy, Peter and Robbie, thank you very much, all four of you. Looking forward to the season and looking forward to your company again soon, I hope, on Breathe Sport. Thanks for watching.